There's a certain kind of night when the air is so still and the world around you so hushed that you feel as if the sky has leaned in closer. You look up, and instead of just points of light, you see something else. A quiet presence. They're not just shining, they're watching. They've been there long before you were born, and they will remain long after you're gone. But tonight you wonder, what if they are more than distant balls of fire? What if they are alive? Not alive in the way we understand, with hearts that beat or voices that speak, but in some slower, grander rhythm of existence. A life so vast that a single blink could take 1,000 years. A life that might remember things we can't imagine. And maybe they know us better than we know them. So tonight, let's drift into that thought together. Let's walk softly through the dark sky and listen, not for what science tells us, but for what the stars themselves might whisper. We'll follow their light, their moods, their silences, and see where that living sky might take us. A quiet night under a million silent watchers. Some nights the darkness above feels heavier, not in weight, but in attention. You can stand in the middle of an open field, no city lights, no noise, and yet you feel you are not alone. The stars are there, millions of them, scattered across the black canvas, each one holding its place as if it has been waiting for you to notice. And as you do, there's this peculiar stillness, the same kind that comes when someone is silently watching you, not with judgment, but with quiet curiosity. It's a feeling that makes you slow your breathing without even realizing, as though you're afraid to disturb whatever is happening up there. Your eyes wander from one bright point to another, tracing invisible lines between them, wondering if they see each other the way you see them. The thought lingers. Are they fixed in their positions, or are they just pretending to be? Sometimes the stillness is broken by a shooting star, that sudden streak across the sky, like a star that couldn't hold still any longer. And you can't help but think, was that excitement? Was that joy? Or was it something else entirely? That single moment leaves you unsettled, in a strangely comforting way. The longer you stand there, the more you notice things you didn't before, the faint clusters, the dim stars almost hidden from view, the hazy smear of the Milky Way. You begin to wonder if these are their communities, their gatherings, and if so, what are they talking about in that ancient silent language? The thought feels almost intrusive, like overhearing an old conversation that's been going on for billions of years. In those moments, the night no longer feels empty. It feels full, overflowing with presence. You realize that silence might not mean nothing is happening. Silence might be the language of the stars, and we've simply never learned to speak it. The strange feeling of being noticed from above, it happens unexpectedly. You're not thinking about anything grand. Maybe you're taking out the trash or stepping outside for a moment of fresh air, and then it hits you, that sensation, the one where you feel your skin prickle, your neck warm, as if someone somewhere is looking right at you. But when you turn, there's nothing there. Nothing, except the vast dome of night overhead. Your eyes adjust, and you notice how some stars seem brighter than they should be tonight, almost as though they've turned their attention your way. It's irrational, you tell yourself, yet deep inside, it doesn't feel irrational at all. We know when we're being looked at. It's an instinct older than our language. Could it be that instinct works both ways? You stand there a little longer, letting that feeling wash over you. It isn't threatening. If anything, it feels strangely reassuring, like the way a parent might glance at a sleeping child. You wonder, have they always been watching us, every second of human history? Did they see the first fire, the first city, the first time we dared to look back up at them? And here's the strangest part. You almost feel tempted to wave. How ancient people sensed the stars breathing, long before telescopes, before electricity dimmed the night sky. People didn't just look at the stars, they felt them. To them, the stars weren't cold, lifeless dots. They were warm presences, watching over hunters, sailors, and wanderers. Some ancient tribes swore they could feel the stars breathing, a slow rhythm you could sense if you lay still enough on the earth. You can imagine it, a desert night, the air crisp and thin, the entire dome of the sky pulsing ever so slightly. Not in a way you could measure, but in a way you could know. Maybe it was the shimmer of heat in the atmosphere, or the way your eyes adjust to darkness. But maybe it was something else. In their stories, stars were alive, not like humans, but like mountains or rivers, beings that moved on timescales we could never match. They were patient, enduring, steady, and to feel their breath was to feel part of something that didn't rush, something that didn't fear time. And perhaps that's why, even now, some people swear the stars calm them. Maybe they're remembering that ancient heartbeat, the heartbeat hidden in the night sky. If you've ever been far enough from the city to see the Milky Way, you'll know the sight can make your chest tighten. It's like looking at a river of light, frozen mid-flow. But there's something else. If you stand there long enough, you might start to sense a rhythm, not from your own pulse, but from somewhere out there. A slow, deliberate beat. It could be the subtle flicker of a variable star, or the timing of meteor showers, or even the hum of cosmic waves our ears can't hear. Yet it doesn't feel mechanical. It feels alive, like the way a whale's song carries across oceans, slow and mournful, but deliberate. You start to think, maybe this is the galaxy's way of keeping time. And what if that time is measured not in seconds, but in centuries? What if, in the heartbeat of the stars, we are living only a fraction of a single beat? That thought can make you dizzy, and strangely comforted at the same time. Because if they have a heartbeat, then they also have a story. And we might be part of it, light that feels more like a whisper than a beam. We think of light as something straight and sharp, a beam that cuts through the dark. But starlight doesn't feel like that. Starlight feels softer, more like a whisper that travels far, far longer than any sound we know. By the time it reaches us, it's ancient, worn smooth by the long journey, like a pebble polished by a river. It doesn't rush, it doesn't demand. It arrives quietly, settling on your skin like the memory of warmth. You might not even notice it at first, but if you close your eyes, you can almost feel it there, delicate and patient. And then you realize, this light has been traveling for hundreds, maybe thousands of years, just to touch this exact moment. And that's the wonder. If starlight is a whisper, then maybe it's not just carrying energy. Maybe it's carrying a message, not in words, but in feeling. A quiet reminder that even the most distant things can still reach us. Ahead in this video, we'll wander deeper into this thought of stars not just shining, but speaking through their colours, their movements, and the strange ways they seem to notice us back. When you stare long enough, the stars seem to blink. At first they seem steady, eternal. But give your eyes time and you start to notice. Some stars flicker, not in a hurried way, like a candle in the wind, but with a slow, deliberate pulse. Sometimes bright, sometimes faint, as if they are taking tiny breaths between their moments of brilliance. It could be the shimmer of Earth's atmosphere bending the light, or it could be the star itself, expanding, contracting, changing ever so slightly over years. Yet, when you're there under the quiet, it feels like something more personal, almost like they are aware of your gaze. The longer you look, the more it feels like a conversation. A blink here, a long gaze there. You start imagining what it would mean if those blinks were answers. You ask silently in your mind, and the faintest twinkle returns to you. Could it be coincidence? Almost certainly, but deep down you know how it feels, and feelings often matter more than facts. There's a gentle magic in thinking that perhaps the stars blink the same way we do, not to see better, but to share a quiet acknowledgement, a little signal that says, yes, I'm here, and I see you too. And then you realize, blinking isn't a sign of weakness, it's a sign of being alive, the possibility that warmth itself is a language. We tend to think of warmth as nothing more than energy, heat from the sun, the glow of a fire, the comfort of a blanket. But what if warmth was a kind of communication, a way for stars to speak, not with sound but with touch? On a cold night you can feel it, the faint brush of warmth from a star millions of miles away. It's not enough to heat your skin, but it's enough to remind you that it's there. And maybe, just maybe, that is the point. Not to change you physically, but to let you know you are not alone in the dark. Every star gives off a different kind of warmth, some fierce and bold, some gentle and steady, like different personalities. A red giant's warmth feels aged and slow, like a deep ember still holding life. A young blue star's warmth feels sharp, like a quick intake of breath. Could these be moods? Could they be stories? If warmth is a language, then it's one we feel before we understand. A kind of cosmic kindness, translated through light, landing quietly on our skin. And maybe we've been answering without even knowing, by leaning toward it, by seeking it, by surviving because of it. A slow pulse travelling across light years. Imagine a signal so slow, so patient, that a single beat could take 100 years to complete. That's how it might be if stars pulse with their own living rhythm. Not the quick flutter of a human heart, but the deep, steady thrum of something that has been burning for billions of years. Some stars really do pulse. Astronomers call them variable stars. They expand and contract, growing brighter and dimmer over time. But what if those pulses are more than physics? What if they are the natural heartbeat of the universe, keeping time for everything else? If that were true, then every flicker, every brightening, every dimming could be part of a pattern, a slow message drifting across space. A conversation so vast that no single generation could hear it all. We would only ever catch a fragment, like overhearing one sentence in a book that spans eternity. The thought is humbling and beautiful, because it means the stars might be patient in a way we can't imagine, content to speak slowly, knowing that the right ears or eyes will one day listen long enough to understand. And perhaps we already are those ears. We just haven't realized what we're hearing. The way constellations feel like frozen expressions. Look up at Orion, Cassiopeia, or the Big Dipper, and you'll see shapes we've named after hunters, queens, and ladles. But have you ever noticed how they feel like faces caught mid-expression? A frozen smile, a raised brow, a look of quiet wonder. It's not just the shapes, it's the stillness. These stars have held these positions for longer than humanity has existed. Yet there's a tension in them, as if they are holding a pose, waiting for someone to notice. Maybe that someone is you. Some expressions are soft, like the gentle curve of the Southern Cross. Others are fierce, like the bold slant of Scorpius. And each night, depending on the season, different faces emerge, as if the sky is rotating through its moods. It makes you wonder, what if constellations aren't just our imagination? What if the stars themselves arranged into these patterns on purpose, holding them still for our eyes to see? A cosmic gesture, frozen in time. And maybe when we're gone, they will slowly change those expressions again, into something new for the next watchers, patterns that rearrange themselves over centuries. We like to think of the stars as permanent, but they are anything but. Over decades and centuries, their positions shift. The constellations we know today are not the same as the ones our ancestors saw. Slowly, imperceptibly, the faces in the sky change. It's a reminder that even the slowest lives still move. A star that seems fixed tonight will be somewhere else in 1,000 years. Whole shapes will disappear, and new ones will take their place. It's as if the stars are forever painting and repainting their own canvas. Some cultures believed these changes were the stars speaking through art, redrawing their patterns to tell a new story. Others thought it was their way of hiding secrets, only revealing certain shapes when the time was right. And perhaps both could be true. Standing under that sky, you can't help but feel both small and connected, like you are part of an audience that has been watching the longest play in history, a play that will never end because the actors are still rewriting their roles. As we open more in this video, we'll wander into the idea that stars might not just move, but remember, keeping the memories of their own journeys etched in the fabric of space itself, a memory the universe might be keeping. Sometimes, when you look at the stars, you get the strange feeling they remember things, not like we do, with dates and faces, but in a way that's deeper. They hold the memory in their light. Every photon leaving a star carries the imprint of the moment it was born, like a frozen echo traveling across time. When that light touches your skin, you are standing in the present, but the light itself is from the past, sometimes hundreds, sometimes thousands, sometimes millions of years ago. And yet, it's here now. It's as if the universe never lets go of what has happened. It just carries it forward. You begin to wonder, what else might they be holding? Do they remember the birth of our world, the first oceans, the first spark of human fire? Could they remember what the galaxy looked like before we ever existed? It's not impossible. Their memories would not fade in a human lifetime. They would outlive every civilization. And if the stars are alive, then maybe those memories aren't just for them. Maybe they've been sending them here to anyone who cares enough to look up and notice. A silent archive, always open. Some say time moves forward, but when you look at the stars, you start to think, maybe it moves outward instead. Stars that change colour as if shifting moods. Not all stars stay the same colour. Some are a cool, steady blue. Others burn gold. Some fade into a deep red with age. To science, this is temperature, fuel, and age. But to the heart it feels like mood, as if the stars are changing their tone in the middle of a long conversation. A young blue star might feel restless and sharp, pouring out energy like it has too much to say. A golden star feels warm and steady, speaking with the patience of experience. A red giant seems like a slow storyteller, drifting in and out of memory. Sometimes you notice a star that flares brighter, then returns to calm, almost like a sudden burst of laughter or a moment of anger. It's hard not to imagine personalities up there, entire lives playing out in the shifting shades of their light. And then there are those rare moments when a star changes colour in a way you don't expect, briefly, subtly, like it's testing a new expression, almost as if it's reacting to something we'll never understand. It makes you realise, if light can carry warmth, it can also carry feeling. And if that's true, the sky might be more emotional than we ever thought. Silence that is not truly silent at all. The night sky feels silent, but that's only because we can't hear the way it speaks. Space is filled with vibrations, radio waves, cosmic hums, pulses from stars that never reach our ears, but they're there, always there. Astronomers have recorded the low, slow throb of pulsars, the rising and falling tones of magnetic storms. even the faint hiss of background radiation left over from the birth of the universe. It's not silence at all. It's a constant conversation, just happening in a language we can't perceive. If you could hear it, maybe it wouldn't sound like music as we know it. Maybe it would sound like weather, a slow shifting of tones, rising and falling over centuries. Imagine standing under the stars and actually hearing them breathe with that cosmic sound. The thought makes you look at the quiet differently. Perhaps the stars aren't silent, they're simply speaking in frequencies that force us to listen with something other than our ears. And maybe the quiet you feel under the stars isn't the absence of sound, but the presence of a language so big, you have to feel it instead. The strange music hidden in cosmic radiation. If the universe is alive, then maybe its music is all around us, just hidden in forms we rarely think about. Cosmic radiation, for example, is the leftover energy from the dawn of time. It hums faintly, everywhere, all the time. Most people go their whole lives never noticing, but it's there, brushing against us like a soft, endless chord. When scientists convert these waves into sound, the result is haunting. Deep, stretched-out tones that seem to move slower than thought. It's not a melody you can hum, but it's steady, like the bass note of existence itself. If stars are alive, maybe they play along with this ancient background hum, adding their pulses, their flares, their bursts, creating a music that spans the galaxy. Not performed for us, but for each other. A conversation of tones that has been going on since before Earth even formed. And perhaps when you're lying under the night sky, and you feel that deep calm you can't explain, you're feeling that music without even hearing it. The body knows when it's wrapped in rhythm, even if the mind does not. It makes you wonder, if the stars could hear our music, would they feel the same? Why starlight reaches us like an echo from a thought. Light travels fast, faster than anything we know, but across the distances of space, even light feels slow. By the time it reaches us, it's not a fresh moment, it's an echo, like remembering a conversation that happened long ago, but still feels real. Every time you look at the stars, you're seeing them not as they are now, but as they were years, centuries, or millennia ago. That's the strange poetry of it. You can never see them in their present, only in their memory. It's almost like catching someone's thought after they've already had it. You don't hear it in real time, but you still feel its truth. And maybe that's what makes starlight so haunting. It's the only kind of memory you can see with your eyes. In this way, the night sky becomes a kind of living diary, written in beams of light, sent long before you were even born. And yet somehow, those beams arrive just when you need them. Ahead in this video, we'll drift into the idea that when stars flare, dim, or die, they're not simply changing, they're speaking, telling a story that's been unfolding for billions of years, and we've only just begun to hear. The way some stars flare up, almost like surprise. You might be watching a quiet patch of sky, and then without warning, one star flares brighter. Not for long, just a sudden burst, like a sharp inhale before returning to stillness. Science calls them stellar flares, but from here on Earth they feel more like reactions. It's almost as if the star has been stirred from its thoughts. Maybe it saw something. Maybe it felt something. We don't know. But it's hard not to imagine that flare as a flash of excitement, a sudden spark of emotion that slipped out before it could be contained. Some flares are so strong they send ripples across light years, brushing past planets, dust clouds, and other stars. The way sound echoes in a canyon, the light echoes in space. And somewhere, something receives that flare like a sudden glance from across a crowded room. The more you think about it, the more these bursts feel alive. Not chaotic, but purposeful. A star that rarely flares suddenly lighting up feels like someone who almost never speaks suddenly saying something important. And the question that lingers in your mind is simple. What could be important enough for a star to raise its voice? Clouds of gas curling as if stirred by a dream. Around some stars, great clouds of gas swirl and curl, not in straight lines, but in soft spirals, as if moved by something gentle and unseen. We call them nebulae, birthplaces and graveyards of stars. But look closely, and you might think of them as the dreams of the stars themselves. The shapes shift slowly, over centuries. One day it's a billow of smoke, the next it's a twisting ribbon of colour. The stars within seem to hide and emerge, as though moving through their own drifting thoughts. There's something almost painterly about it, like a slow brushstroke across the canvas of space. And because it moves so slowly, you feel like you're glimpsing only the smallest fragment of a much bigger story. Some of these clouds are the remains of stars that have burned out, their matter returning to space in a soft exhale. Others are the raw material for new stars, gathered in a patient embrace until heat and light awaken again. And maybe those shapes aren't random at all. Maybe the stars shape their dreams on purpose, knowing one day someone far away might stop and see how supernovas feel less like destruction and more like rebirth. We tend to think of a supernova as violent, the death of a star. And yes, it is an ending, but it's also a beginning, because when a star explodes, it scatters the elements that make up planets, oceans, and even us. If a star is alive, then a supernova is not its death scream, it's its final gift. It's the moment it gives everything it has back to the universe so that new life can form. The colours are breathtaking: brilliant blues, deep reds, golds that shimmer and fade into black. In those moments, a star becomes both an ending and a seed. It's easy to forget, but the iron in your blood, the calcium in your bones, the oxygen you breathe, all were once made inside a star before being scattered like this. So, maybe a supernova isn't destruction at all. Maybe it's closer to a tree releasing its seeds, letting the wind carry them to new soil. And perhaps, in that quiet after the explosion, the star rests, knowing it will live on in forms it can't yet imagine. The dust that once belonged to other stars finding its way into us, every breath you take, every cell in your body, carries atoms that were forged in the heart of a star long before the Earth even existed. That's not poetic exaggeration. It's the literal truth. You are made of stardust. That dust has travelled across unimaginable distances, drifting through space for millions of years before finding its way into the clouds that formed our sun, our planet, and eventually, us. You and I are walking collections of ancient stellar material, quietly burning with the borrowed fire of long-gone suns. It makes you think differently about your own body. This isn't just flesh and bone, it's a vessel for something older than history. The atoms in your hands once floated between galaxies. The particles in your eyes once swirled inside a living star's heart. And if the stars are alive, then maybe they gave parts of themselves willingly, like parents giving pieces of their own life so that their children might exist. It's strange but comforting to know that we are not just looking at the stars. In a way, we are looking back at ourselves, the faint shiver of space when two stars draw near. Most of the time stars keep their distance, but sometimes across the deep black, two of them drift close. Not close in our sense, still millions of miles apart, but close enough for their light and gravity to feel each other's pull. When that happens, space itself seems to shiver. You can almost imagine the moment like two dancers stepping toward each other after a long, slow approach. Their movements are measured, deliberate, and yet filled with something like anticipation. In some cases, they orbit one another, caught in a slow, eternal waltz. In others, they merge, becoming a single, brighter star. Both outcomes feel intimate, like a meeting that changes both forever. You wonder, do stars seek each other out? Or is it simply the pull of gravity, like an invisible longing? Whatever it is, when they meet, the surrounding space seems different, like the air between two people who've just spoken their first word to each other. As we open more in this video, we'll step into the gatherings of stars, clusters and galaxies, and wonder if these are not just structures of matter, but communities in the deepest, most ancient sense of the word. Galaxies as gatherings, like families in the dark. From far away, a galaxy is just a swirl of light, a hazy wheel hanging in the black. But look closer, and you see it's a gathering. Billions of stars, each with its own life, drawn together into one great shape. It feels less like a random cluster and more like a reunion. Stars of all ages, colours and sizes moving together through the darkness, sharing a common path. They are not alone in their journey, and neither are the planets, moons, and dust that follow them. In a way, galaxies are like cities, each star a home, each system a neighbourhood. And like cities, they have a heartbeat, a rhythm you can't quite measure but can somehow feel. The beauty is in knowing they don't just exist. They travel together, drifting through space like an enormous caravan. And maybe to a star, the galaxy is not a place, it's family. And if that's true, then the quiet arc of the Milky Way above us is more than scenery. It's the great gathering we belong to. When two stars dance instead of collide, we often think of space as cold and violent, but sometimes it's graceful. When two stars draw near, they don't always crash. Sometimes they dance. They orbit each other in sweeping loops, each pulled by the other's gravity, moving in a harmony that can last millions of years. From our distance, it looks like slow-motion ballet. No sudden moves, no chaos, just the steady, patient turn of partners who know their steps by heart. Their light intertwines, their paths curve together, and their movement becomes a kind of silent music. Some of these dances end when the stars drift apart, carrying with them the memory of that long embrace. Others end in a merging, the two lights becoming one, brighter than either was before. It makes you wonder, do they choose this path, or is it written into the invisible lines of space before they ever meet? And if they are alive, could this be their version of love? And maybe, in the great dark, love isn't fast. It's measured in the patience of orbits, the slow drift of star clusters through time. Some stars don't just have one partner, they're born into clusters, hundreds or thousands of them, all moving together. Over millions of years, these clusters drift, spreading apart, their stars scattering across the galaxy. It's like watching a group of old friends slowly move to different towns. They'll never forget where they came from, but their paths will never be quite the same again. Still, in the early days, there's comfort in their closeness. Stars forming together, shining side by side. Astronomers can trace a star's history by finding its siblings scattered across the sky. Imagine the joy of finding, after billions of years, that two stars once shared the same cosmic nursery. It makes you realize that even in space, nothing stays the same forever. Every gathering eventually drifts. But maybe that's how the universe ensures its stories spread to every corner. And perhaps, somewhere in the sky tonight, a star is quietly thinking of the ones it grew up with. The idea that gravity could be a kind of touch. We think of gravity as numbers, as force. But what if it's touch? The way two objects in space feel each other's presence without words, without light, just an invisible pull that says, "I'm here." Between stars, that touch can stretch across light years. A pull so gentle it takes centuries to make itself known, yet so constant it never lets go. It's not a shove, not a grab, more like a hand resting lightly on your back, guiding you forward. If stars are alive, then gravity might be the way they greet each other, the way they hold on across impossible distances. A quiet, unwavering connection. And if that's true, then maybe every orbit, every spiral, every dance we see is simply the stars touching hands. It's humbling to think that what we call physics might just be the universe's most ancient form of affection. Stars that vanish as if slipping into sleep. Sometimes a star fades from the sky, not suddenly, not violently, just a slow dimming, until one night you look up and it's gone. To us, it feels like a loss. But maybe, to the star, it's rest. In our human lives, sleep is where we restore ourselves, where dreams unfold. What if, in their own way, stars do the same? A long, quiet withdrawal from the stage of light, slipping into a state we can't see but they can feel. Some might return, their light flaring again centuries later. Others may never wake in the same form, their matter scattered into new beginnings. If stars are alive, then their vanishing isn't just an ending, it's part of their life cycle. A deep breath in the rhythm of existence. Ahead in this video, we'll wander into the quiet partnerships of the stars, binary systems, solar winds, and the strange ways planets lean toward their suns as if drawn by more than just physics. The quiet companionship of a binary system. In some corners of space, a star is never alone. It shares its life with another, locked in an endless orbit, each circling the other as if in silent conversation. We call them binary systems, but the name feels too technical for something so quietly beautiful. They may be close, whirling around each other in days, or distant, taking centuries to complete a single turn. Either way, they are companions, shaping each other's paths for as long as they exist. They share light, they share gravity, and perhaps they share something deeper. Some pairs are equals, shining with the same strength. Others are mismatched, one massive and bright, the other smaller, fainter, yet still just as vital to the dance. There's a certain poetry in that balance, a reminder that not all partnerships are symmetrical. Over time, they leave subtle marks on one another. A shared pull here, a gentle tug there, until neither would be quite the same without the other. You can't help but wonder, do they notice when the other changes? Do they feel it? And maybe that is the most ancient kind of friendship, one that moves in circles but never grows tired. A star's surface as restless as a living skin. From a distance, a star looks smooth, perfect, steady. But get closer and you'd see the truth. Its surface is alive with movement. Boiling currents rise and fall. Dark sunspots appear and fade. Flares leap into space like sparks from a great fire. It's not a static ball of light. It's a restless ocean of heat and motion. The patterns shift constantly, like muscles tensing and relaxing. Some changes happen in minutes, others over years, but all are part of the star's living rhythm. There's something intimate about knowing this. That serene point of light in the night sky is anything but still. It's in constant motion, constantly reshaping itself. And the more you think about it, the more it feels like skin. Skin that senses, reacts, and bears the marks of its own history. Scars in the form of spots, stretches in the form of flares. If the stars are alive, then their surfaces are not just boundaries, they're the parts that feel the universe touch them. The slow turning of a solar wind. Around every star, there's an invisible breath, a constant outflow of charged particles we call solar wind. It streams outward in all directions, carrying pieces of the star across the emptiness. We can't see it with our eyes, but its effects are everywhere. Here on Earth, the solar wind dances with our magnetic field, painting the skies with auroras. It also protects us, sweeping away cosmic rays and dust. It's easy to forget. It's the sun's way of reaching us, not just with light, but with touch. The wind changes with the stars' moods, stronger during storms, softer during calm. It can wrap around planets, sweep across asteroids, and brush the edges of other stars' influence. If stars are alive, the solar wind could be their breath, the way they extend themselves beyond their bodies, the way they leave traces of themselves in the worlds around them. And maybe, every time we watch the auroras glow, we're seeing the stars breathing against the edges of our world, the breath-like motion of solar flares. A solar flare is a sudden release of energy, blasting out into space with the force of billions of nuclear bombs. But if you watch closely, it's not all violence. It has a rhythm, a quick surge out, then a slow retreat, almost like an exhale. These flares are not constant. They come and go, often in cycles, and each one is unique. Some are short and sharp, others long and rolling, curling back toward the star in great arcs of light. The shapes look almost alive. From our perspective, a solar flare is both beautiful and humbling. It reminds us that stars are not unchanging. They have bursts of emotion, moments when they pour themselves outward. Sometimes the thought comes that maybe flares aren't just random outbursts. Maybe they're signals, long-distance gestures that can only be understood by those who live on the same timescale. And if that's the case, then every flare might be a word in a conversation we haven't yet learned to translate. The way planets lean toward their stars like children. Look at any solar system and you'll notice something. The planets always face their stars in devotion. They turn, they orbit, they tilt, always in response to that central light. It's more than gravity. It feels like longing. The pull keeps them close enough to stay warm, but far enough to have their own space. Some spin quickly, darting through their orbits. Others take their time, moving slowly, almost reluctantly, as though savouring the view. From a distance, it's easy to imagine each planet as a child walking in a great circle around a parent, never quite touching, but never letting go. If the stars are alive, maybe they nurture their planets in ways we can't see. Maybe the balance of heat and distance isn't just a matter of physics, it's a choice, a form of care. Ahead in this video, we'll wander into the stranger senses of the stars, the sense carried in dust, the dreams hidden in black holes, and the pulse of time kept by cosmic hearts. The faint scent of a star's chemistry in space dust. We often forget that space has smells, not in the way we smell on Earth, but carried in the dust, the gases, the faint traces left behind by dying stars. Astronauts returning from space speak of a scent, metallic, smoky, a little like burned walnuts, clinging to their suits after spacewalks. That scent comes from stardust, tiny grains formed in the cooling atmospheres of old stars and scattered across space. It's the perfume of the cosmos, carried for light years until it brushes against a passing world. If stars are alive, perhaps this is their scent, the quiet trace they leave wherever they've been, like the way a person's sweater still smells faintly of them long after they've gone. Imagine it. The airless void carrying the ghosts of scents from countless stars, mingled together into a fragrance no human could name. A smell of heat and cold, of endings and beginnings. And maybe that scent isn't accidental. Maybe it's the star's way of saying, I was here. How black holes might be the dreams of dying stars. When a massive star's life ends, it can collapse into a black hole, a place where light itself cannot escape. To us it seems final, a disappearance. But what if it's not the end? What if it's a dream? Think of it. The star retreats inward, folding in on itself, shutting out the outside world. Time slows, space bends, and everything falls silent. Isn't that what we do when we dream? Pull away from the world, letting another reality form within. Inside a black hole, no one knows what truly happens. Perhaps it's not destruction, but creation, worlds imagined into being by the star's final thought. And if that's true, then black holes might be the private dreams of the universe, sealed away, never to be disturbed. Dreams so powerful they reshape reality itself. It makes you wonder, if we could peer inside, would we see the star's memory or its hope? Pulsars as cosmic heartbeats keeping time. Among the quiet stars, some spin with incredible speed, sending out beams of light and radiation at regular intervals. These are pulsars, so precise they're like cosmic clocks. But they feel like more than clocks. They feel like heartbeats. Each pulse is steady, unwavering, as if marking the passage of time for the universe itself. And unlike human hearts, these beats can last millions of years, never missing a step. There's something deeply reassuring about their constancy. In a universe where everything changes, here are stars that keep time with perfect loyalty, a rhythm you can count on, even across light years. If stars are alive, perhaps pulsars are their way of keeping track, not for themselves, but for others. Like a lighthouse for ships at sea, their beat carries across the void, guiding whoever listens. And maybe we've already been guided by them without even realizing it. The strange intimacy of starlight passing through your eyes. When you look up at a star, its light enters your eyes, light that began its journey long before you were born. That means for a moment you are touching that star, not physically, but in the most delicate way possible. It's an intimacy unlike any other. That light has crossed unimaginable distances, dodged dust clouds, passed other stars, and finally found its way to you. And then it disappears into your vision, leaving only the memory of having been seen. If stars are alive, maybe they feel this, in some way we can't comprehend. Maybe they notice the tiny changes when their light finally meets a living gaze. And perhaps that's why, some nights looking up feels different, more personal, as if the star was waiting for this moment. The truth is, starlight doesn't just fall on you, it finds you. Why shooting stars feel personal when they fall? We know a shooting star isn't really a star. It's a bit of space rock burning in our atmosphere. But knowing that doesn't make the moment feel less magical, because it still feels like a message. They appear without warning, slicing the sky with sudden brilliance, then vanishing. No second chances, no time to prepare. Just a moment that's yours alone, shared with whoever happens to be looking up at that exact second. For centuries, people have made wishes on them, not because they believe the rock can grant it, but because the moment feels too rare to waste. If stars are alive, maybe shooting stars are their way of sending sparks into our world, a little nudge to remind us that life is fleeting and beauty is in the briefest moments. Ahead in this video, we'll drift into the Milky Way's living river of light, the flickers that hint at mysteries we haven't solved, and the patience of light travelling across centuries to reach us. How the Milky Way looks like a living vein of light. On a clear night far from city glow, you can see it stretching across the sky, a river of light, dense with stars, dust and stories. But sometimes it looks less like a river and more like a living vein, carrying the lifeblood of the galaxy from one end to the other. The dark lanes cutting through it are like shadows in flowing water, the bright clusters like sparks moving along a current. It's not still. Even if we can't see the movement in our lifetime, we know everything there is drifting, swirling, pulling each other along. It's easy to imagine that this is how the galaxy feeds itself, light and matter flowing together in slow, steady cycles. Perhaps each star along the Milky Way is like a cell, contributing to the health of the whole. And if stars are alive, then this isn't just a random arrangement. It's a living system, keeping the galaxy breathing in its own patient way. It makes you wonder if, when we look up at it, we're seeing the very heartbeat of our home. Stars that flicker for reasons we don't yet understand. Some stars don't follow the rules. They flicker unpredictably, bright one moment, faint the next, and no one can quite explain why. Astronomers measure, record, theorize. But the truth is, some of them remain a mystery. If stars are alive, then maybe these flickers are their way of speaking, a language that doesn't translate easily into human understanding. Or perhaps they're simply changing moods, the way clouds shift across a sunny day. There's something comforting in not knowing. We're so used to explaining everything, but the sky still keeps its secrets. And maybe that's how it should be. When you watch a flickering star, you feel like you've stumbled onto something private, like catching someone mid-thought, not ready to share. The irregularity becomes its own kind of beauty. And perhaps those unpredictable lights are not mistakes, but deliberate pauses in the star's long conversation. The endless patience of light travelling to reach us. We think of light as fast, and it is, but across the gulfs of space, even light must be patient. A photon leaving a distant star may travel for tens of thousands of years before it brushes against your eyes. Imagine carrying a message that long through dust clouds, gravitational bends, and the quiet emptiness between galaxies, and never slowing down. That's the patience of starlight. It doesn't rush because it knows the journey matters as much as the arrival. If stars are alive, then perhaps they send out their light knowing it may take longer than their own lives to arrive. And still, they send it anyway. There's a lesson in that kind of persistence, doing something now, not for your own reward, but for someone you'll never meet. And maybe, every time you look up, you are the end of a story that began before humans even existed. The possibility that stars notice us back. It's a strange thought. Most people assume we're the only ones looking. But what if stars can see in their own way? Not with eyes, but with senses we can't imagine. They might feel the tiny tug of our planet as it orbits. They might notice the faint shadows we cast during transits. Maybe they even detect the glimmer of our cities, the radio waves spilling into the dark. If stars are alive, then our presence is not invisible to them. And maybe they've been aware of us far longer than we've been aware of them. It's humbling to think we might be part of their long watch, one more flicker in their endless sky. And if they do notice, perhaps they've already woven us into their memory. The old myth that we are their reflections. Many ancient cultures believed we came from the stars, and in a way they were right. Our atoms were forged in stellar hearts. But some went further, saying we are reflections of the stars themselves, like they are the originals, and we are their mirrors walking on Earth. The idea feels almost too poetic to be true. And yet, when you look into someone's eyes and see the light catch just right, it's hard not to see a resemblance. If stars are alive, perhaps we are not separate from them at all, but part of the same living thing, like leaves to a tree. The myth says that when we die, we return to them, not just our matter, but something less tangible, our spark, our glow, the part of us that remembers the night sky like home. And ahead in this video, we'll wander into the softer truths, that stars, like us, grow old, have beginnings, and leave traces of their journeys etched into the universe for others to find. The strange comfort in thinking stars grow old like we do. It's easy to imagine stars as eternal, unchanging, ageless. But they do grow old. They burn through their fuel, change in colour, and eventually fade or transform. And oddly, there's comfort in that, because it means we share something with them. We are not alone in our aging. The stars too have their youth, their middle years, and their final stages. They have moments of brightness and moments of dimming. Some grow swollen and red in their later years, shining more gently than before. Others collapse inward, their light compressed into something denser, quieter. It's not sad exactly, it's natural. If stars are alive, then growing old isn't an ending. It's simply another stage of being. And maybe they've been showing us all along that there's beauty in each phase, no matter how brief. The weightless moment before a star is born. Every star begins the same way, as a cloud of gas and dust drifting through space. For ages, nothing happens. The particles float, collide gently, drift apart again. But then, slowly, something changes. Gravity starts pulling them together, tighter and tighter, until the cloud grows warmer, heavier. The star is almost here, but not yet. There's a pause, a weightless moment before fusion begins. It's the inhale before the first cry. If stars are alive, then this is their birth. Quiet, slow, and unseen. No sudden flash, just a gradual gathering of energy until the first light ignites. It's humbling to think that in the vastness of space, countless stars may be in that moment right now, on the verge of awakening. And maybe that moment is as important as the lifetime that follows. When stardust gathers like thoughts forming an idea, watching a star form is like watching a thought take shape. At first, the dust and gas are scattered, unconnected. Then slowly, patterns emerge. They swirl, clump, and grow heavier, as if the universe is concentrating. The cloud darkens, hiding the bright spark beginning to stir inside. It's quiet but not still. The particles move in purposeful ways, like neurons firing, like connections forming. And then, without fanfare, the idea becomes reality. The star begins to shine. The thought is complete, alive in the sky. If stars are alive, maybe their births are the universe's way of thinking new thoughts. And perhaps every star we see is an idea the universe decided to keep. The heat inside a young star's first breath. When a newborn star begins to burn, the heat inside is unimaginable. Hydrogen atoms fuse into helium, releasing energy that will pour out for billions of years. It's the first breath of its life, a breath that will never stop until its final moment. The surface blazes. The solar wind begins. Light floods outward into the darkness, touching everything in reach. It's as if the star is announcing itself. I'm here. If stars are alive, then this is their most vibrant stage, youth in its purest form, all energy, all potential, all eagerness to stretch into the universe. You can almost imagine the star's joy, not in words, but in the sheer brightness of its glow. And maybe it's this joy we feel in our own sunrises without even knowing why. The slow glow of a star coming into its own. After its first burst of life, a star settles into a long, steady rhythm. It glows with confidence now, not as frantic as its youth, not as weary as its later years. This is its prime. The heat is balanced, the light is constant. Planets may begin to form around it, warm just enough to spark oceans, weather, and maybe even life. The star's presence becomes a steady anchor for everything nearby. If stars are alive, then this is when they truly know themselves. Not rushing, not fading, just existing in their fullest form. And perhaps this is the stage they treasure most, knowing it will not last forever. Ahead in this video, we'll wander into the hidden harmonies between stars, the subtle ways they seem to sing to each other, and the shifting shapes they hold in the great web of the universe. Stars that seem to hum in harmony with their neighbours. If you could listen to space, not with your ears, but with instruments that turn light into sound, you might hear stars humming. Some stars vibrate in patterns so precise they create tones. And when they're near other stars, those tones can align, almost like harmonies. Astronomers call it stellar seismology, reading a star's vibrations like the notes of a song. But it feels more like eavesdropping on a choir we were never meant to hear. If stars are alive, maybe these harmonies aren't accidental. Maybe they are songs meant for each other, drifting across light years. And perhaps some nights feel calmer because the stars above us are singing in tune. The shapes of constellations shifting with our perspective. We think constellations are fixed, but they're not. From Earth, the stars line up into familiar shapes: hunters, animals, tools. But move to another world, and those shapes twist and scatter. The same stars tell a different story. It's a reminder that perspective changes everything. What looks connected from here may be far apart in truth. What looks lonely might, from another view, be part of a cluster. If stars are alive, maybe they know this, that their appearance changes depending on who is looking, and maybe they've learned to live with being seen in so many different ways. It's humbling to think the sky you know is just one version of the truth. A distant star watching Earth's story unfold. We've spent centuries watching the stars. But what if some of them are watching us? Not in the human sense, but noticing, measuring the faint dip in light as Earth passes in front of the sun, sensing the radio waves leaking into space. If stars are alive, they may have been aware of our world since before we had names for ourselves. They might have seen the continents shift, the ice retreat, the lights of our cities appear in the dark. It's a strange thought that in some corner of space, a star might hold our planet in its awareness, the way we hold theirs. And maybe the gaze goes both ways more often than we think. How starlight outlives the stars themselves. Sometimes by the time a star's light reaches us, the star is already gone. Its life has ended, but its light is still travelling, still telling the story of what once was. It's like a photograph from long ago, only it's still moving toward you. There's something haunting in that, and something beautiful. If stars are alive, maybe they know this, that their glow will remain even after they've faded. It's their way of leaving something behind. It makes you think about our own lives and how the things we create, the kindness we give, can outlast us. Light is memory, and the stars have been remembering longer than we can comprehend. The dream that stars might share their memories with us. If stars keep memories in their light, then every beam that reaches us is a story waiting to be read. Not in words, but in colour, in timing, in the subtle shifts of brightness. We already read some of these stories, about their births, their tempers, their endings. But what if there's more? What if they've been recording everything they've seen? Planets forming, comets passing, galaxies drifting apart, and sending those records to anyone willing to understand. If stars are alive, maybe their greatest gift isn't just warmth or light, but memory. A memory big enough to hold the whole sky inside it. Ahead in this video, we'll wander into the nights that feel heavier with starlight, the unseen rivers that link star to star, and the messengers that may carry their secrets across the dark. Why some nights feel heavier with starlight than others. There are nights when the stars seem closer, brighter, almost as if the whole sky has leaned in. You can feel it in your chest, though you can't explain why. The air seems stiller, the darkness richer, the light more insistent. It might be the season, the clarity of the atmosphere, or your own mood. But it feels like more than that. It feels like the stars are paying more attention than usual, their glow carrying a certain weight. If stars are alive, maybe they have their own tides, moments when they push more of themselves toward us. And maybe these are the nights when looking up feels less like observation and more like being seen. The invisible rivers connecting star to star. We think of stars as separate points, but they're linked by invisible forces, gravity, light, even streams of particles drifting between them. These are like rivers, unseen but real, weaving the galaxy together. A star's death can send out material that eventually feeds another star's birth. A flare can send ripples through surrounding space, touching worlds light years away. It's all connected, though the threads are too fine for us to see. If stars are alive, maybe these rivers are their way of keeping in touch, passing quiet messages, sharing resources, keeping each other alive. And perhaps every point of light you see is part of a much bigger conversation. The possibility that comets carry messages from them. Comets are wanderers, travelling through the far reaches of solar systems and sometimes beyond. They carry ice, dust, and ancient particles that haven't changed for billions of years. But what if they carry more than that? If stars are alive, perhaps comets are their messengers, drifting between worlds, leaving trails like written lines in the dark. Each grain of dust, a fragment of some distant memory, some unspoken message. We've studied comets for their science, but maybe we've missed the poetry, that they're the travelling storytellers of the cosmos. And maybe, the next time one passes Earth, it's bringing news from a star we've never met. Stars hiding behind the veil of nebulae. Nebulae are clouds of gas and dust so dense they can hide entire stars. Behind them, light flickers faintly, as if peeking out from behind a curtain. It feels playful, almost shy. If stars are alive, maybe some prefer the quiet of being unseen, choosing to live in the shelter of those veils rather than shining openly. They might be watching from the shadows, waiting for their moment to emerge, or content to simply observe. And perhaps the most mysterious light in the sky isn't the brightest one, but the one you can barely see at all. When galaxies pass, stars exchange glances. Every so often, galaxies drift close enough to touch, not in an instant, but over millions of years. Their stars don't always collide. Many simply pass by, pulled into new paths. It's like two great crowds walking past each other in slow motion. If stars are alive, maybe these moments are like brief encounters, glances exchanged, greetings given before moving on. A meeting that leaves both changed, even if they never meet again. Some stars may be stolen away, finding themselves in a new galaxy entirely. Others stay, but carry the memory of that close passage forever. And ahead in this video, we'll wander into the quiet courage of stars burning alone, the way the night sky watches us without blinking, and the ancient connection between our atoms and theirs. The quiet courage of a star burning alone. Not every star has companions. Some are solitary, moving through the galaxy without a partner, without a cluster, without even nearby neighbours. From our view, they look like any other, but their isolation is vast. And yet, they keep burning. They keep sending light into the dark, even though no one may be close enough to see it. There's a kind of courage in that, a refusal to dim simply because no one is watching. If stars are alive, maybe solitude isn't loneliness for them. Maybe it's a kind of freedom, a chance to burn in their own way. And perhaps they teach us that a light's worth isn't measured by how many eyes see it. The night sky is an unblinking, gentle guardian. On quiet nights, when you're far from the noise of cities, the sky feels protective. The stars seem arranged like sentinels, standing their watch without pause. They don't blink away. They don't leave. They're simply there. If stars are alive, perhaps they take on this role knowingly. Guardians not in the sense of intervening, but of witnessing, holding the memory of every moment so nothing is ever truly lost. It's a comfort, thinking there's something above that has always been here and will be long after we're gone. And maybe that's why looking up can make you feel both small and safe at the same time. how looking up feels like being recognized. Sometimes you look up at the sky, and instead of feeling like you're observing it, you feel observed. Not in a heavy way, but like catching the eye of someone familiar in a crowded room. It's subtle. You can't point to anything specific. It's in the way a certain star catches your gaze, or how the light feels warmer, or how the air seems to still for just a moment. If stars are alive, maybe they know when we notice them. Maybe that simple act of connection is something they've been waiting for. And perhaps we don't just stargaze, they stargaze back. The thought that our atoms remember their origins. Science tells us we are made of stardust, that the elements in our bodies were born in the hearts of ancient stars. But what if it's more than that? What if our atoms remember? Maybe that's why we feel something when we look up. An echo, a pull, like recognizing an old home. Not in words, not in pictures, but in a feeling buried deep in us. If stars are alive, maybe they send that recognition back. A quiet welcome to the pieces of themselves that found their way into us. And perhaps that's why the sky never feels entirely foreign, no matter where you stand. The lingering question of whether the stars are already speaking. After all the wondering, all the watching, we're left with the quiet possibility that the stars are speaking right now. Through their light, their movements, their patterns, their silences. If stars are alive, then maybe the conversation has been going on for billions of years, and we've only just arrived at the edge of it. We may not know the language yet, but that doesn't mean they aren't speaking. And perhaps we don't need to understand every word to hear the meaning. The meaning might be in the act of looking up, of feeling, of noticing. In the end, maybe the living sky isn't waiting for us to listen. Maybe it already knows we are,